Restaurants in Asheville currently charge $34 for a bowl of soup beans, rebranding the absolute floor of American survival cooking as premium rustic dining. The families who invented these dishes survived on a different economic scale. In the 1930s, a coal miner might bring home $11 a week, often paid in company scrip that was only valid at the company store. Mountain families used these meals as a literal mechanism for keeping their children alive through 5-month winters. With grocery inflation stretching modern budgets, many are turning back to these 50-cent recipes to feed their own families for pennies. However, successfully replicating these meals today requires accounting for the massive, unpaid labor that originally made the ingredients viable. The cash price of these ingredients is inseparable from the localized labor that subsidized them. A true cost ledger reveals the gap. While the left side shows a dime for beans, the right side captures the invisible labor, the hours spent gardening, foraging, rendering hog fat, and hauling water. Appalachian frugality operated as a year-round infrastructure built around gardens and smokehouses, rather than a collection of simple grocery hacks. This required precise logistical engineering. By August, mountain women had to calculate and preserve the exact number of jars needed to sustain 7 people until the following April. The viability of these meals today rests on whether the hours of required labor yield a better return for your household than standard grocery shopping. We can evaluate these methods through 3 efficiency frameworks, starting with caloric stretching, the practice of combining cheap, shelf-stable starches with cured fats. This is best seen in soup beans. Dried pintos are soaked overnight, then simmered for up to 6 hours with a single piece of salt pork or fatback. The long cook time breaks down the starches into a rich broth called pot liquor. This creates a profile of protein, calcium, and fat for under 50 cents. To capture every calorie, families paired the broth with cathead biscuits or hoecakes, cornmeal pancakes fried in a skillet to sop up the bowl. This system relies on a specific physical trade-off. Extracting maximum nutrition from dried beans requires constant passive heat and a consistent presence in the kitchen to tend the fire. Caloric stretching is the most financially efficient system available, but it fails as a quick dinner option for a modern worker with a long commute. The second framework is zero-waste preservation. Without refrigeration, summer harvests were heavily processed to survive the winter. For green beans, this meant leather britches. Families spent days hand-threading beans onto string to air dry for months, which gave the beans a deep, smoky flavor that mimicked expensive meats. They also utilized pickled corn, which used lactofermentation to preserve the late summer crop. Submerging corn in salt water triggers a fermentation process. Modern science proves this creates a probiotic powerhouse that fortifies the human microbiome. This method requires rigorous environmental control. Preventing spoilage depended on the stable, cool temperatures of stone spring houses or deep root cellars. While historical preservation offers a high nutritional return, the physical space and spoilage risks make it impractical for most modern urban apartments. The final framework is micronutrient scavenging, foraging wild botanicals and creating hyperacidic relishes to extract vital minerals. In early spring, families foraged for wild greens like poke salad. This provided a free infusion of vitamin A, iron, and B12 after a winter spent eating almost entirely starch. This method carries real physical risk. Mature pokeweed is poisonous. Making the young shoots safe to eat requires boiling them in 3 separate changes of water to leach out the toxins. For safety and flavor, they also made chow, a sharp salted vinegar relish produced from scrap garden vegetables. Chow served a biological function. The heavy vinegar and acid improved the digestive tract's ability to absorb minerals from a diet centered on plain beans. Scavenging and acid balancing provide extreme micronutrient benefits, but they demand intense botanical literacy and a high tolerance for risk. We can map these systems onto a decision matrix. Top left are high-yield, low-active labor meals like soup beans. Top right, pickled corn requires significant labor but delivers microbiome benefits. The bottom right contains historical novelties like leather bridges, offering little practical modern benefit. Utilizing these recipes successfully requires selecting the method that strictly matches your available time and physical space. For remote workers tending a simmering pot all afternoon, caloric stretching with dried beans is the most efficient way to lower a grocery bill. Gardeners and homesteaders with storage space can use fermentation and chow to maximize their nutritional return on investment. However, time-poor urbanites should avoid high labor preservation and wild foraging. The safety and speed of modern frozen vegetables provide a better return in a fast-paced environment. It is also worth noting that this historical diet relied on an entire community sharing the burden of labor and resources. Historical frugality relied on an immense investment of systemic labor to ensure absolutely nothing went to waste, a cost that isn't reflected in the price of the beans themselves.